I was at the Monaco Grand Prix, and I'm on this super yacht that I had kind of probably, talked my way into getting onto. And all of a sudden there's this guy in the middle of the dance floor, and he just looks happy and fun, and I'm happy and fun. And pretty soon we drank a little bit too much, and I got him in a headlock, and I said, "Where's the bathroom?" And he goes, "Oh, I'll show you." And we walk down, and I'm talking super yacht. We walk down, and and I go, "Oh, that's a cool art piece." And he goes, "Yeah, that was 3 million." And all of a sudden I realized I got the owner of the owner of the super yacht in a headlock on the dance
In
floor.
the headlock.
Welcome to Extraordinary Stories. I'm your host, Forbes Shannon, and with me,
Christine Butler.
and we have an awesome guest today. He's been nominated another three-peat.
Yeah.
Another three-peat nominee. He's nominated by Aaron. He's nominated by you. He was also nominated by Craig Goldberg. Just
That's
an
right.
amazing human being. There's so many. He's a jack of all trades,
Truly.
really. But he's also got this awesome epic community full of epic people. That's
Yep.
over 1,600 people now, and epic people gravitate to this guy because he is
Naturally.
epic.
Yeah.
The one and only Paul Kirchhoff. Paul, thanks
Good
for being
Lord.
here, man.
Thanks, Paul.
Man, you know what? Like, first of all, the Bitcoin is already in your wallet. Thanks for introducing me like that. But that was amazing. Thanks for doing that. Wow, super honored to be here with you guys. Two of my favorite people I've met and had a chance to get to know. So thanks for having me.
Oh man, it's because you're extraordinary.
Absolutely.
Let's start with Christine and Aaron. They both nominated you. How do you know Christine and how do you know Aaron?
Well, I met Christine through Aaron, but we had two amazing meals with Christine. I've talked to Aaron, much deeper, but I think one of the most amazing things was, maybe it's quantum physics at play. I mean, I'm sure everything is, but like we sat down and the range of topics that we hit, from quantum physics to precision health to, writing books and, marketing and AI, was in a casual conversation. And so every time I sat down the first one, I was like, when's the second one? Unfortunately, we don't live next to each other. So we made it happen. And I can't wait for the third as well. And then Aaron, I've had conversations with him, which you guys both know him even better than I do. And, I think when you meet another pioneer, but not just a pioneer, it's a pioneering brain that is pioneering on whatever the topic is. And I think we really had our minds hit at the same pace. And because we were talking about possibilities and all these vectors, not just, information about it. And I just love that. That's kind of what I'm built for.
Awesome. Well, and then at one of those meals is the third nominee that nominated you, Craig Goldberg. How do you know
Oh
Craig?
my God. Yeah, Craig's is a whole different story. He's one of my best friends in the world. But I'll tell you how I met Craig. I was a +1 at his wedding in Tulum, and these guys had been going to Burning Man, and I was coming from Catholic raised Texan, right, a little bit more conservative than the average burner. Although I am 12 years running. Christine, know that, right? 12 years running.
Oh, yeah.
But he kicked that off because when I went to his wedding, I was in a room and he goes, "Okay, everybody, put on your tutus. We're going to dinner." And I was like, "What are you guys talking about?" And then he said, "Oh yeah, even the guys are wearing these tutus." And I'm like, "You got to be kidding!" And I was grotesquely sweating, nervous. I was hiding in the jungle, and these guys were just casually going down 50 people in tutus, men and women. And I was like, "This is insane." But ever since then, we've just become really, really close friends and work a little bit together. And that's the story. If Craig didn't tell you, he kicked off my
did
Burning
not,
Man career.
but I
Yeah.
love that. And you know what? That sounds like some shit I would do.
Yeah.
Hey guys, guess what we're doing today? We're running a marathon.
Yeah.
Just remember that.
It's crazy.
Wearing some tutus. That'll be a bonding experience.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Hey,
Paul.
listen, that's a Craig thing, right? If you hang out with me, we may go shoot some guns and warm our hands around the campfire, maybe turn on some electronic music and see what happens 4 hours later. But putting tutus on when you first meet somebody, you'll have to talk to Craig about that one. That was not me.
That's a wild first impression.
Yeah, but you want Craig in your party list, right?
For sure, yeah.
You want Craig.
Yeah. Paul brings the noise.
That's
Craig
right.
brings the tutus. Yeah,
Right.
I love it.
Exactly.
Right.
Right.
So Paul, you kind of were touching on a unique look into the different sides of you just right there. A burner that's, Texas Catholic, there's so many different sides of you. I don't want to call them contradictions, but they are like opposites where you have two opposing sides of you in one thing. What other ones do you got in your Rolodex?
Well, I think number one is everything stems from, kind of like from all of us, like how you were raised, what that upbringing programming was or whatever, which I've learned, by the way, I'm the least qualified transformational coach or therapist. I have zero skills in that. So like, this is a unit of one, my explanation. But I think what I've learned from watching other people that are gifted is that I've been blessed to recognize like these things. And so, for example, my parents were very poor. Both of them were very poor. My mom is Hispanic. My dad, who's not alive anymore, was, German and Dutch, which is where I get the looks from. And they grew up and somehow found love in where they were growing up in South Texas, which was just as racially divided as any place on the planet, right in the 50s and 60s. And so I'm a product of number one, two different cultures, right? Two different races, which means a lot to me. Number two, I'm a product of multiple economic statuses. My parents were poor, and they did a great job of letting myself, and I have a younger brother, understand what it meant to be poor. But my dad, out of both extended brothers and sisters, 12 of them, he was the only one to get a college degree, and he was a pharmacist, right? So I grew up basic middle class, not upper middle class, basic middle
Mhm.
class. And lastly, I grew up right next to the Grand Canyon. And so I grew up in a city that, mixed with Hopis and Navajos and that
Yeah.
culture at the same time. I'm probably one of the only people that's hiked all but like 1% of what is hikeable in that place. So like this love of nature and cultures and economic status, and the point is that I kind of have grown up, and of course in my own career I've done more successful monetarily than my parents did. So I've been part of it all, and the thing that I'm the most proud of, I think, with that um, is that because I'm a piece of everybody, I don't have the ability to judge anybody, and that is a great way to roll through life. And as you guys know from talking to me, it's allowed me to do things uncharacteristically, like just decide to sell everything I own and move into a bus, right, with my wife. And we lived like that for 5 years, building the tech company that we're now bringing to market, right, that you were talking about. So none of that shit would be possible if I didn't really love at my core, um being this, uh, I don't want to say well-rounded, but like this grateful middle class dude, right? When no matter what I would ever earn, no matter what, that's the guy I want to be, because that
Mhm.
that is that is a defensible position when you're comfortable with everything and little, and I love it, and that's kind of who I choose to be. So
Yeah. Well, one thing that we really touched on was your ability to sell everything and just hit the road and go and like take that risk, right? Aaron and I both did it this summer where we have nothing anymore. We literally got rid of everything and moved
right.
out to the East Coast. I mean, you were there for a
Mhm.
little bit of it, but there's that sense of freedom in owning
Mhm.
absolutely nothing, right? And I
Amazing.
would take that over anything. Do
Yeah.
you have that same feeling? Do you feel like you have more when you have nothing? And what is
Well,
nothing, right?
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I'll give you an example, and you guys could, I mean, I'm sure you guys could, lay down a bunch of examples. But I had this guy that I met. I was at the Monaco Grand Prix, and this was really because I was in like an adventure phase of life that my adventures would probably go toe to toe with anybody on the planet. We can get into some of those if you want to.
Yeah.
But but I was at the Monaco Grand Prix, and I'm on this super yacht that I had kind of probably talked my way into getting onto, and all of a sudden there's this guy in the middle of the dance floor, and he just looks happy and fun, and I'm happy and fun, and pretty soon we drank a little bit too much, and I got him in a headlock, and I said, "Where's the bathroom?" And he goes, "Oh, I'll show you." And we walk down, and I'm talking super yacht. We walk down, and and I go, "Oh, that's a cool art piece." And he goes, "Yeah, that was 3 million." And all of a sudden I realized I got the owner of the owner of the super yacht in a headlock on the dance
In the
floor,
headlock.
right? Now he's showing me like where the bathroom is, and he's talking. Anyway, we became great friends, and I'll never forget. I was sitting on a porch of a house that he owned in like the south of France, right? And he looked at me and he goes, you know why I love you, dude? And I said, why? And he said, because you don't need anything. Like you don't need anything. And he goes, I've
Mm,
got, the biggest house in St. Bart's, one of the biggest houses in south of France. I got like 14 or 15 Ferraris. He goes, I don't even know. I've got house managers. I'm pitched all the time. I have to pay for everybody all the time, right? It's expected. And there's something amazing in the simplicity of
Mhm.
the way you operate. And that really like hit home because when you're younger, especially guys that think success is like a Lamborghini, and there's nothing wrong
Yeah.
with that stuff. I mean, I'm at all, but it was just amazing. And by the way, the guy grew up middle class, right, in
Yeah.
in Scotland, and that's why he like probably identified with me because that's really who he is. But he kind of blew up into this complexity. So you couldn't be more accurate. Like there's something magical about like having it's not about having zero responsibilities or tentacles. That's
Mhm.
not the issue. The issue is having, not that many things. And what's crazy is when we moved into this bus, man, I mean, like, I packed what I thought I needed and I probably rotated 7 shirts and had 14 more that I didn't need. You know what I mean? It's like
right.
it. So it's just, I don't know, and for me, it was a blend. I'm sure it was for you and Aaron too, but
Mhm.
it was a blend of simplicity in that, and you're right, the power in that, but it was also like a life where you wove the stuff that I love the most. You had a
Yeah.
person that you loved, you had nature, permanent nature, right? And you also had the blank sheet of paper with technology because the reason we could do it is 5G and LTE signals were
Yeah.
everywhere we were going to go, right? But we were not in tour mode. We were moving every 4 months. Right. So that's why we sustained it for so long because we'd moved to Santa Fe for 2 months, Bozeman, Montana for 4 months, the Mojave Desert for 4 months or whatever. So, but it was, but you nailed it. There's something magical. And what's crazy is the amount of people that you tell your story to, or that I do.
Yeah.
I mean, even in the last 5 days, they're just like, oh my God, I wish I could do that, and,
Yeah.
it has to be engineered a little bit, but you should do it because you don't need all
Right.
this shit.
And it's a lot easier than you think. Just throw your shit away.
Well, why do you think people say, I wish I could do that?
Mhm.
Mhm.
Why does it seem so far reaching for them?
I think, you know what? I think part of it is that, we are all kind of trained to work hard so that we can do something, right? And there's a misconception of how much stuff costs to do that, right?
Yeah.
For example, when I first was even at the start looking at it, I was like, oh my God, like this diesel engine's gonna suck gas. Well, guess what? If you only move 500 miles every 4 months, gas is nothing. Like you don't even it's not
Yeah.
that's not even like that's not anywhere near the top 10 costs, right? Food's
Yeah.
Right.
higher. So
Yeah.
I think that, some of it may be that, but I also think that, there are real life complexities that step in, like kids, right? I mean, we saw people on the road that had kids and that was their lifestyle. It would be very tricky to do because kids need structure and repetition
Yeah.
and stuff, having, been a father. But, but I definitely think that I would encourage everybody at your guys' age or my age that as soon as you can do it and engineer work on the move, right? Which is now more possible than ever. So it's I wish that for more people. And by the way, I'm sitting not in a bus. Clearly, I'm now in a high rise in downtown Austin. But I got to tell you, to us, this is also temporary. It's
Yeah.
we came here to take the company. We need to be around a tech center, capital, all that kind of stuff. It would have been tough to do that on the road, but we already know that in a handful of years we'll be rolling back to the next horizon and going back to zero. Right? There was no reason for us to stop that lifestyle other than to give the platform that we have a moment of chance. So.
Well, Paul, what's next? Like, what's your next adventure? I know you have a couple years there building. Do you guys have any idea of where you want to go next?
We're kind of we're flirting where it may actually be a boat and the sea and coasts, and it's a different lifestyle, but it's very similar. Like we know we could do it,
Mhm.
and so that's something that we're kind of thinking about. But I don't know. Like I think part of life is also not getting attached to any destination, or
Mm,
any goal, and just kind of letting it roll and see what
Mhm.
happens. And the game of life, I think, when you kind of operate like that, you kind of you'll get pulled where you get pulled. You can argue with a
Yeah.
little bit of, quantum stuff that you could actually like pull the reality to you, but maybe that's for a different podcast.
Yeah.
But the point is that I feel like, you know, it's kind of funny, but it's kind of the same thing with as a leader, if you want to be a great leader, part of it is your ability to like weather the storms that for
Mhm.
sure will come and come often. And your ability to weather that is how attached you are to an outcome that you think could be negative or positive. And when you actually are like letting that stuff go, right? Like for example, somebody asked me the other day, "Hey, what's your goal with your business?" Fuck, I don't know. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm having fun. I know that the scorecard is like the financials and
Mhm.
treating everybody that works with me like family. And we're inventing some really cool shit. I think it's going to be successful. But like, do you want to sell it? Fucking, who cares? Like, I mean,
Right.
I'm going to be dead here pretty soon, right? So, like, when that happens, I'm pretty sure my answer is going to be, did I have fun?
Yeah.
So,
Mm,
but you really have to you have to become that. You can't fake that, right? Because
Mhm.
if you're worried about something that's going to happen, or you're worried about like whether we should, go do this or that, then I think that you have the chance of being disappointed. And if you don't want to be disappointed and live in that probabilistic like moment of anticipation,
right.
just like roll forward doing your best, right? Treat people like you love them, and if you're talented, like think and watching a little bit of a scorecard like a game, you'll do well.
So
So,
I'm curious, what is it that you're building, if you can explain to our listeners? And then it's a two-parter, and then
mhm.
why you're having fun building it.
Yeah, man. Well, I mean, I learned probably chemically I'm addicted to a blank sheet of paper, so technology seemed like a good place to start, exercising that blank sheet of paper. No, I'm just, but well, so first of all, what I'm doing has been morphing, actually, while we're on the topic, this is like another thing that I've learned, right? Like, which is like, you are never who you have been. I mean, you are maybe in terms of your skill sets and your wisdom and everything, but you're always able to be who you're going to be. And what I mean
Yeah.
by that is like, I think maybe it's a 7-year itch in business or careers or whatever, but like I've reinvented myself in a whole new space and, worked hard to get to the top of the food chain in terms of like a thought leader in like multiple spaces. And anybody can do that. I think a lot of
Mhm.
times it's like, oh my God, I've been a project manager for 14 years at, Procter and Gamble. Like I got to go find the next senior program manager. No, you don't. You got skills and a horsepower, right? And if you just apply yourself to, whatever, making baseball bats, you're probably gonna be pretty good, right? You just gotta learn some new skills and go for it. So I think that's an issue. But the reason I say that is because like, I know that my DNA is built for evolution, like permanently. And I was recently in this like leadership uh, conference, and this guy gets up there and starts talking about different types of leaders. He's like, there's wartime leaders, there's spiritual leaders and everything. And I kept thinking like, fuck, like I didn't even know there was like not there was something other than wartime, because like I operate as if there was a war when there is no war. And what I mean by that is you're perpetually nervous that you're going to get caught. So you
Mhm.
keep inventing and you just can't stop like, pushing forward. So, the company that you were talking about, Epix, which has been in motion for a while, but also had they're not it's just a constant evolution. Is it was becoming a network where you had these extraordinary people like you guys and others in there, and it was built to help people achieve faster by connecting you to knowledge, connecting you to each other, the people that you needed. There was a piece of adventure. We were throwing our own Burning Man like parties. We were taking people to Mongolia, crossing the Sahara Desert, going to space, because it was important that you don't work so hard that you lose life's interesting
Mhm.
stuff. And then we started to attract these biohackers, and we started to like, bring, peak performance, but everything from like stem cells and genetic engineering. So a whole bunch of like smart people from around the world that were helping each other with it. Turns out I didn't realize this when I started Maslow's hierarchy of needs: make progress, be the best version of yourself, right? Mentally, physically, everything else. And then also make sure that you enjoy life a little bit with these adventures and experiences. The reason I say it's been morphing and what it's becoming is because I've been building the frontier of technology, and really also applying it to operations for a long time. And I was already, when AI came out, starting to operate and architect my own company to have no employees, international talent, culturally perfect for their job. They were trained up on AI. AI is running all the automation. It's like I knew I was on a picture of what like business will look like in the future. So we started helping
Mhm.
some other companies. Anyway, long story short is I put AI inside the platform, but I think that we're so far ahead of people right now that the platform is becoming almost like a small business operating system with where small businesses can have Fortune 500 AI executives that can now do things, they can run the show with you, and at the same time we're taking other AI applications that can help you be more human. So if I can help bring AI into your business to help you operate 10 times larger than you are with no new hiring and no change to your day, which we can,
Mhm.
then at the same time, I'm going to use my skills in AI to help you be a more comfortable human, to help you, optimize your own peak performance, which is unique to
Mhm.
everybody. And so I think my gifts in moving this thing, and oh, by the way, there's a network, and that network is going to meet up. They're going to do adventures. That's the human side of it. But a lot of
Yeah.
times, I think in this world, and you guys know this, every single business is shackled by these traditional physics of capital, talent, time, and when you pull AI together in systems, not little tools, not little workflows, but in systems where they're watching things and can move the needle for you within what your goals are, I mean, that breaks physics. And if you break
Mhm.
physics there, not only will people make more money and have an easier time in business, but you can also bring a better life to them as well personally. And so we're hitting those two things.
So, what you just talked about like AI at a systemic level, right? AI integrated into your system. Something Aaron says is, what that's going to do is that's going to, you know, optimizing and automation, that's just going to become standard. It's just going to be like disappear, right? It's going to
Mhm.
become the average. And the differentiator of the future is how do you as a human be more human so that you can break average, right? You can lean more into your humanness. Is that something that you agree with? And what do you think that means for the future?
Yeah, well, I mean, I will tell you this that the more you spend time trying to get AI to do something, even at an individual agent level, the more you realize how similar we are to an agent. And whether we're software and this is just a fun hologram for an hour with you guys, like I'm happy in any regard. But the fact is, we also learn by feedback loops. We also have a
Yep.
knowledge base. It's whatever we've experienced, right? We also are taught to do things and not do things, right? I mean, we're not that different than trying to shape, a single AI agent. But I think and these things are, growing in their complexity, their brain power and everything else, but you really get appreciation for how unbelievably powerful our brains are compared to the best models out there, which are fractions of what our brains can do. It's really remarkable. But you also start to look at us as software as well, which is like, probably healthy or unhealthy. But I think that, the world is trying to figure out how to stitch agents together. We're kind of like beyond that. But what runs a company is not a knowledge base and like a query from a human there. It's systems. And systems are constantly in movement. It's a state. And so an organizational layer to manage these agents, right? Hey, do this, don't do this, escalate that. That's not at an agent level. That's a different type of intelligence, which is kind of like what
Mhm.
I'm kind of pioneering. But here's the answer to your question, at least from my standpoint, is that when AI first came out, right? One of the first things you saw were like note takers, right?
Hmm.
And we were doing, live webinars, like live master classes all the time. We used to have 40, 50 people. All of a sudden, a lot of people started not showing up, but we'd have like more note takers. And I realized, and this is early on, right? During the middle of COVID, I realized, I'm not really sure these guys are being more human, right? Especially with the brand that was pushing people to adventure and go watch a sunrise, right? Pushing people to like use technology so that you can learn more about yourself because you're a unique set of one. You don't need to, keto diet number 57 may not work on you. Like, can we give you technology that represents you? All of
Mhm.
this has continued. the sad part is, I think, and some of it is cultural, is that all of us have filled that gap with, like, instead of a 40-hour work week, we've got like a 2 million hour work week in a 40-hour work week because we're using AI to do all these things. I don't think we've become more human at all, unfortunately.
Mm,
But I think that, the ease of doing things in work has gotten a lot better. And I think we're still at the tip of what people are going to see as possible. But my hope for everybody, my wish for everybody is that, think about all these elements that go into what you asked, Forbes. It's like there's work, of course. And then what do you do with your time? Well, we're all, especially in America, we're just like America, like we're getting more, we're doing more work as we can. But the things that stem from like you not knowing things about yourself or the people you love are devastating. For example, if you're a
Mhm.
mm,
teacher and a kid is popping off,
Mhm.
you get that kid in trouble and the next teacher gets him in trouble, the next teacher gets him in trouble, and nobody knows that they have ADHD and all they need to do is burn energy. So that kid grows up thinking that he's an asshole, right? And gets thrown into foster care and nobody can control this kid. He's in trouble, but he's not really in trouble. His biology is that he has to burn energy. So if you just send him on a run around the school and he comes back, he's fine. And it turns out he's an A student. The
Mhm.
technology, including some of the stuff that we have access to with no blood, saliva, stool, nothing, would tell everybody, you're this type of human and I'm this type of human. And just by having a single word that you know what that means, you would optimize for them differently. And you see this in marriages, right? Like
Yeah.
even marriages, the guy is trying to tell the wife or vice versa, why are you doing that? Like, are you an idiot? Well, no, they're biologically different. In work, you got a guy who or a gal who sits in the corner, never says anything, right? So
Mhm.
they're not a baller. When really, if everybody in the room knew, oh, that's the type of human that's like an antenna, right? Biologically, genetically, they are geared to take things in and they're going to go
Mhm.
back and think about it and come back with something amazing. All of a sudden, level field. And I was this entrepreneur in my early 30s where I'm like there at 6 a.m. at my own company. Who the fuck is everybody? Like you guys aren't. If you guys want to be, if you guys want to kick ass, get here when I get here. Stupid, right? If I knew biology without knowing their biology, I'd be like, hey man, you guys are geared to come in at 10 and go late night. So you guys come in at
Mhm.
10. I'm going to warm up your environment because that's what you're geared for. So like this biology based leadership and biology based AI, I think is not just is keto diet good for me? It's like, man, like, I got, I know how to calm Forbes down when he loses his mind, because he's different than me. These
right.
things are cornerstones. And so my hope is that, I don't think we're going to get out of like people burning their time more and more with AI, but my hope is that AI will also help like surface things that you could not possibly know as humans. And with a little bit of that, you become optimized in your own health and happiness, but more importantly, with others. And I think that's a root cause of a lot of human angst. So that's here
Absolutely.
too.
Paul, I'm with you on the biology leadership. So I have this idea. And so I'm writing a book about feminism. And I truly, truly believe that the workplace should be based, just for women at least, off of our 28-day cycle. Now,
Uh,
let me tell you why. I mean, there are certain weeks where we're not going to operate our best at all. And like any woman can tell you that. Like we just will not, right? And then there's a week that we're going to do our best because our energy is high, our dopamine's everywhere, So
mhm,
I really think that if you look at a man with a 24-hour cycle versus a woman who has a 28-day cycle,
mhm,
it's a completely different, game. So I think we
totally.
need to have that a little bit, maybe we should start pushing that into
Hmm.
the workplace a
And you're
little bit
writing
more.
about the balance between femininity and masculinity, right?
Yes, totally.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way,
Yeah.
what's interesting about that? I was going to say, well, I was going to say, well, no shit, I'm married. I can vouch for that exactly. But
Yeah.
what I was going to do is offer a little bit of innovation here and say, hey, what I would do is I would put my wife on collections on those certain
Mhm.
days when she's
Yeah,
pissed,
exactly.
right? She'll bring the collections in and like,
Right.
go get that money, girl. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly, and it just makes sense. So biology is the
It's
key.
Yeah.
Humans are the key
it's
to
so
Mm.
everything.
true. It's so true. You know what? What's funny is with the technology that we have, which I'll give you guys access to, because it's phenomenal what you learn about yourself, but I think
Mhm.
it's even more phenomenal what you learn about, others because we piloted it for a year, and there's a training program that goes with it where like once a month you'll hit sleep, and you'll learn the science of sleep, and then you'll learn how to translate it through this app to your sleep so that you can start to adjust these things methodically over a year. I want you guys to do it. But and we talked about the difference between men and women. What I was talking about is the difference between, human types, which didn't really take into effect. I mean, there is some female versus male stuff, obviously, like within that. But
Mhm.
what's amazing is I'd love to connect you with the precision medical folks that did all the science behind this stuff, because I think you're right. I mean, that is probably the most pure, massive difference biologically than even the stuff that I'm talking about. And wouldn't that be amazing if I mean, why shouldn't you optimize work at the individual level, including what you're talking about? I think that's a great thing to explore for sure. Let
Well,
me know
and
how.
why shouldn't we use technology to learn more about ourselves?
Absolutely.
You know, right?
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, and and all that stuff is emerging. I think but another just very quick element about this about yourself, because I think this is like sometimes I think when you're messing around with things, I've learned in my life just based on where my career has gone, I got to pay attention to what I'm doing because it might be the future of something. And I'll give
Yeah.
you an example. So my father had passed away when he was 56, and I'm coming right up on that age. And he had a rare form of prostate cancer. So they that's largely hereditary. And they told me when I was like 28, guys are supposed to start testing for that like when they're 45 or something. And they said, hey, you might want to start testing earlier because like you might have this. So I started testing for a long time. It turns out doesn't seem it seems like I'm safe. But what happened is recently, so I have all these like medical tests, and occasionally when I go in there, I also test for cholesterol, and mine is like 50%. It's like over where it should be, right? And so regardless, so I decided just recently I'm going to do function health. I'm going to get 160 biomarkers, full blood chemistry. Let's see what's going on. Sure enough, everything looks good except a large majority of things that were out of whack were cholesterol related, right?
Mm.
So I'm in this application. I got this data. I've got my historical stuff, and unrelated, went and got a heart scan for plaque, right? Like everybody should. And so I dump all this stuff into this application, and turns out the chat function's not AI. It's not recognizing this stuff. So I go back out to ChatGPT and I say, hey, like as a medical clinician, right, and a bio and blood scientist, check this out. So it gives me some information, but it says, by the way, if you have this gene, right, it could explain this. So I'm sitting there thinking, like, oh man, of course, like if I have my genes, and then I realized like I did 23andMe. I grab my ancestry, I jam it in there. I happen to do the medical element of the 23andMe. I throw that in there, and then it says, what peptides are you taking, or supplements and everything else. So I started, and all of a sudden, I've got this medical, like everything of me, genetics, right, hit
Mhm.
ancestry, and what came back was remarkable. I mean, it was explaining how certain markers in my blood should be higher because of where my father or my mom had come from, like that area
Mhm.
of Mexico or northern Germany. And like I kept thinking to myself, like, how, like, where in the hell would a person get the inputs, advice, if a doctor or the medical practitioners didn't have all of this information? Because if you give me a
Mhm.
little bit of it, it may or may not lead me to the right conclusion. It has to be holistic. And so that was just a very interesting way of, obviously using even today's technology to self serve, you know, and educate myself about myself, right? Because I mean, how would you know not to panic, right? And so many times
Mhm.
we have the medical profession is built to solve, right? If they see it, they contain risk, which I get. But I just think we're such, holistic, moving state beings that unless you have all of it, like how are you going to get to the right conclusion? So I was getting to what I thought was a very educated conclusion on my own, and that's possible now. So it's
Yeah.
just we're breaking physics and business. I think we're breaking new ground for how we know ourselves and how we know each other. And I honestly, it's strange, but I feel like yeah, the mental side of what we all deal with. And the biochemical ability to have the data to like optimize, right, whether I should be taking
Mhm.
omega 3s more or whatever, like that stuff is here. That example I gave is like here right now. But I feel like the most important thing is like is what I was saying, how you know about each other. because if you knew that somebody was biologically different and the way they optimize is different from you, and you were tied to them either out of love or out of business success, team performance, you would change everything to optimize for their
Mhm.
biology. You would you it wouldn't even be a question. And in today's world, we're just hammering on each other because we all think each other are idiots because they're not like us or whatever. You know, it's like
Right.
it's like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
stupid. It's such a groundbreaking area, I think. So, and you're leading some of it too there with what you're writing about.
Well, it's fascinating that you're optimizing the self, the relationships, and businesses all
Mhm.
in one, breaking the physics of business, breaking the physics of relationships, breaking the physics of how you know yourself. I mean,
Yeah.
and I love what you said earlier. Is you said, anything I come across, I could be the future of
Yeah.
what I'm doing, and that
Yeah.
that open mind
Mhm.
mentality. We ask everybody this on Extraordinary Stories, Paul. What piece of advice could you give to our listeners today that could help them live more extraordinarily like Paul Kirchhoff?
Man, that's a big one because I think that, you know, just again as a unit of one, you never know where people are in their
Mhm.
progression to self comfort, right? But I think that, like even the stuff that we've talked about, it's like, whatever you think you have to be happy is bullshit. So if you could just assume that there is nothing you need to be happy. Second thing is it's great to have goals. It's good to have, to go after things that, you believe will be happy. But what I've learned is the real gold is doing whatever you have to so that without any effort, you cannot feel judgment
Yeah.
and you cannot judge anybody else. I think that to me, I don't know why, but to me, like whatever it takes to get there, and there's lots of different ways for people to help you get there. There's, the problem with what I just described is that no matter what somebody's resume says, no matter where they come from, no matter whatever, like if you believe that, wow, like imagine if I just woke up every day and and I just loved whatever the moment was, right?
Yeah.
Because there's no expectations and there's no everything in the past is the past, everything in the future might happen, it might not, but whatever, I'm happy. Like I think the challenge is that how you get there is like degrees of 0 until you get there. When you flip
Mhm.
that
Mm,
corner, like,
mhm.
you become that, and you can't walk across coals. No offense to Tony Robbins, but I have no idea what Tony Robbins does, so I don't really care. Number 2, I also, um, I also don't think you can choose happiness because your guttural instincts and reaction are built hardcore into you, so you have to neutralize those, right? And
Yeah.
but all these things are great to do because they're positive. But I think that, we a lot of us first of all, a lot of us roll through life never even thinking about, wow, maybe there's another gear in me that could
Mhm.
10x everything. I'm telling you there is. So many people don't even think about it. And the rest of us, we think it might be there, but we start like spending hours on the symptoms, right? I'm going to choose happiness. I'm
Yeah.
going to choose happiness. And 2 days later, you're like, want to kick your dog, right? Or whatever. And I think that the only way you get there is by, you gotta understand yourself and these things that made you, and then Jason Bourne yourself with repetition so that your neurons fire and fuse in a different way, and then one day you wake up and you can't even feel those insecurities anymore. I honestly,
Mhm.
that's my layman's term for how you do it. I don't know any other way you can get there, no matter what somebody teaches. But I will tell you this, these transformational coaches, these people that are gifted, they know how to start the process to get you there, and I think that's important. And what's weird is part of my own, you guys will love this, but part of my own master classes, I hosted 500 of these things. Half of them were everything about business, half of them were everything about this. And the reason I had half of them, 250 sessions on transformation, was because like, if somebody said, "How important is this?" to me in my life, I would say, "Look, here's the ranking order. The ranking order is
Mhm.
number 1, the health and safety of my family and the people I love, right? You guys included. Number 2, right beneath it, arguably trying to get to number 1 is this, what we're talking about, right?
Mhm.
Everything else is end through who gives a shit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Like cars, house, how much money, whether people think I'm popular, nothing matters. This is so important that if you can get the curiosity to go, shit, man, I wonder if I could figure out what causes my insecurities and then go Olympic level ape shit
Yeah.
trying to like burn in how to neutralize them. Eventually they will become neutralized, and life, and I think this is a little bit of quantum physics that bringing the world to you, it just changes. And I always tell people, like, I'm the same dude I was in high school, but I'm much more powerful now, right? Because I
Yes.
just, those insecurities are just not here as much as they used to be. And I'm happy being imperfect, so.
Yeah. I love that you love being imperfect.
Perfectly
There's
imperfect.
freedom in that.
Yeah.
You know what's on
Yeah.
my top of the list of needs?
Mm.
Number 1, slow morning. If
Ooh,
I don't
that's
have
good.
my slow morning, you don't want
That's
to
a
be
good
around
one.
me.
Yeah,
Then I'm
that's a
just not
great one.
happy that I don't have the two,
That goes to the biology he was talking
Yeah.
about. Yeah. But, be curious and then have the Jason Bourne
Bourne.
like discipline to go and take care of business. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
So
man. Yeah.
Gotta
Let's
be
take the hill.
audacious.
that was awesome. You can read more about Paul Kirchhoff and the Extraordinary Collaborative at joinextraordinary.com. That's JOINEXTRAORDINARY.com. I'm Forbes Shannon.
I'm Christine Butler.
Paul Kirchhoff. Thanks, man.
Love it.
Thanks.
Thanks, man. Love you guys.